The other kingdom, by the end of 2 Kings, is captured by the enemy, taken into captivity, and held as prisoners. Okay? Bill, can I get you up here? Come on up. I need your help. That's you, yep. What's next? What's next? 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Okay? Now, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Let's see if I got this right. There's 2nd. Put that right there. Okay, Bill, why don't you take it over here. Give Carly a free hand. You can focus on that. I mean, sorry. Alright. Alright, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Notice what happens with 1st and 2nd Chronicles. It overlaps. 1st and 2nd, or 2nd Samuel and 1st and 2nd Kings. 2nd Chronicles actually covers all of this area, 1st Chronicles here. But you see, they overlap. And sometimes that gets confusing, because you've read all about King David. King David is dead, Solomon comes, Solomon dies, his son takes over, all this stuff is happening, and then all of a sudden you get the 1st Chronicles and gets you back. David, where did he come from? I thought he was dead. Well, he was. Because these two books are located there in the order of the Bible, but here in a chronological order. And that's why we're reading chronologically, because it's going to tie some of these books together. So we've got 1st, 2nd Chronicles. What's next? Ezra. Ezra comes here, and after Ezra, Nehemiah. Good. Now these, this line of separation here, there we go. Alright. Joel, come on up. Thank you for volunteering. Alright, Ezra and Nehemiah. You jump in right next to Bill and give him some free hands so you can help them. Ezra and Nehemiah, and then after that, Esther. Ezra and Nehemiah. Remember I told you the Israelites went into captivity. They were captured, they were taken away, they were taken to Babylon. They're trapped there. By the time Ezra and Nehemiah are writing, the king of Babylon has said, okay, you've been here for 70 years. Go back to your nation and rebuild your nation. You now belong to me. You are under my jurisdiction. But I want your nation to flourish. I want it to be prosperous. And I want you to be good subjects. Go back. Rebuild your city. Rebuild Jerusalem. Rebuild your temple. Worship your God. Go with my blessing. And Ezra and Nehemiah are all about the rebuilding of that Jerusalem and Israel. Next is Esther. Now Esther, all the people didn't leave. Okay? They actually went back in waves. Some of the Israelites went back as a first wave team to start the process of rebuilding. And then with Nehemiah, another wave went. And then with Ezra, another wave went. Nehemiah built the city wall. Ezra's people built the temple. Right? These waves go back. But some remained. Esther was among them. Esther stayed in captivity. And Esther became a queen. And it was a good thing too, because all those people who had gone back and rebuilt, there was a plot to kill all the Jews that were left. And Esther, because she was the queen, was able to get a word to her king and save all the Israelites. So you can see how all this begins tying together. Next, what we have is a group of books called the poems, the poetry books. What's the first poetry book? Job. Job comes first. Then Psalms. Then, yep, you got the Psalms here. We have, what's this? Proverbs, and then Ecclesiastes, and then good. So those 5 books form what's called the poetry books. Yeah, good question. Here, just hold these right here. Just right there. There you go. Right there. There you go. Good. And we've got to find Job. I don't know what I did with Job. I lost Job. All right, where is he? No, that's Jeremiah. All right. All right, well, Job may be somewhere coming down the road. I'm not sure. I have to tell you, for obvious reasons, I've never had this cool thing opened. Okay? So I put it all together, trusting that all these pieces would fall into the right place. But now you see these books are all about poems, right? The Psalms were mostly written by David, who was written about in 1 Samuel, 1 Chronicles, and Psalm. The Proverbs, the Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon, which is right here. There you go. Yeah, hold these again. Written by his son, Solomon, who was written about in 1 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and these are his writings. So you see, they're all by those people, but located later, right here in the Bible, but written by these people in here. Make sense? All right, what's next? Isaiah. Give me the next four after Isaiah. Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and my favorite, and yours?
Daniel.
Which one is it? Daniel, right? These are called the major prophets. 5 books, major prophets. Not because they're more important, but because they're larger, right? And again, they were written during this period of time, and we have, let's see which ones we have in here. There's Jeremiah, Lamentations, and Daniel. Can you reach all the way down there? There we go. Down here, we have Isaiah, Hosea, Micah, Jonah. Oh, that's not quite that far. Isaiah, we'll stop with Isaiah. Okay? We can just leave that right there. Okay? And what do we have? Oh, those are minor prophets. Okay, so we've got our major prophets. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Next, we have 12 books which are called the minor prophets, right? These are all named after the people who wrote them. Isaiah was written by, Jeremiah was written by, Lamentations was not written by a guy named Lamentations. Okay? He was written by Jeremiah, who was lamenting, who was crying about what? The destruction of Jerusalem, which happened between here and here, at the end of Kings, before Ezra and Nehemiah brought the people back to rebuild, the destruction. He was lamenting that. So, next we have 12 minor prophets. Written again in this same time period by 12 minor prophets. Read them together out loud if you can. Alright, start. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Good. Malachi was what we read this morning. Alright, Malachi is the last book in the Old Testament, and it should be right here, Haggai, Zephaniah, and Zechariah, and Malachi. Okay. Is this making this clear, or is this really muddying the waters? I'm hoping that this is helping to clarify, because really, this is the whole timeline up to Esther. Old Testament. That's all the Old Testament. These were written during this time. A lot of the Old Testament was written during this time. Okay? Old Testament. So, the question was, what is the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament? Okay? Got that? Got this? There we go. After Malachi wrote, no more Bible was written for 400 years. Quiet. God was quiet for 400 years. He didn't speak to his prophets. Things were happening. Things that were recorded, that were written down. They were recorded in a book called the Apocrypha. So we have an account of what happened during that period. It just isn't God that's speaking. It's man recording the events of history. Silence. Silence between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The passage that we have read this morning from Malachi, that Ken read for you, said, "See, I am sending you a messenger to prepare the way for him who is to come." Right? The last words of Malachi predict the coming of a Messiah. A Messiah that was predicted in Genesis. that was affirmed. See how all the arrows point. They're pointing. Somebody is coming to do something. Somebody is coming. He's going to come from the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's going to come from the nation of Israel. He's going to come from the kingly line of David. This guy is coming. He's going to come. He's going to reestablish what we once lost. And even better than what we once lost. He is coming. He is coming. He is coming. He will be a king. He will be a prophet. He will be a priest. Who is this guy that's coming? John. Yep, come on up. Yeah, that was right. I wasn't looking for the answer, but you're right. Absolutely, that's who it is. All right, can we have everybody take a shift to the right? Just kind of step to the right, try not to tear this. You know what this paper is, right? This is that old printer paper that we used to have. It's got those things. Good. Jesus comes. You're going to have fun with this. Ready? Lift that one up. And drop this one down. There you go. And one more. Flip. There we go. You need to keep that one up. Your arm's going to get tired, buddy. I need to keep this one here. Jesus is coming. The cross is coming. God's plan for salvation. Everything in the Old Testament points to it. The prophets predict it. They talk about events that are happening in their day and age, but they also talk about events that will take place here in the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They're all on top of each other. Why? They all talk about the same thing. What? Jesus. They talk about His birth, His life, His ministry, His teachings, His death, His resurrection. And I included Acts in this because at the very beginning of Acts, Jesus is there. Jesus ascends into heaven and establishes His church. The cross has come. The cross is the thing that everything in the Old Testament points to. All the prophets, all the people, all the priests, everything points to that, which is the answer to this. That's the Old Testament, the beginning of the New Testament. All right. Steph, come on down. Now we start on the New Testament, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. What comes next? You got your contents open? Acts, then Romans. Good. Steph, you've got Romans, you've got the Pauline epistles. The Pauline epistles are just a fancy way of saying the letters of a guy named Paul. You got it? Okay, good. Okay, keep this one back here. We're not there yet. Just there you go. Sideways. All right. Go ahead and read. Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Thessalonians, Timothy, Titus, Philemon. Stop. Okay, Steph, drop your right hand and let that folder unfold. There we go, there we go, there we go. Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Thessalonians, Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. These were all written by one guy named Paul. Which way are those arrows pointing? Back to the cross. They are talking about what Jesus has done for us. How does that work? What exactly is it that Jesus did for us? What does it mean that He died on the cross? Why did He do it, and how does it benefit us? Paul explains it in his letters to these people. To who? The people who live in Rome, the people who live in Corinth, the people who live in Galatia. Right? They all talk about what Jesus did and help us to understand the depth of His love and of His mercy and of His grace and of His truth and of His power and of salvation, of eternal life, of heaven, of hell, of everything. Paul explains it and helps us to understand it. How's your hand going, John? Good. You realize what you're holding, don't you? You are holding up the cross, which is everything is pointing back to you. Right? The Old Testament points forward to it, the New Testament points back. All right, Robert Zane, come on down. After Philemon comes what? Hebrews. Now, Hebrews is a very convenient and inconvenient book simultaneously. Go ahead and move that. Because